Hey, this is Dave from Dave and Mickey's Shiny Side Out. If you've just tuned in, this is the second hour of Shiny Side Out. This is where we talk about a show topic that is a show arc over a number of shows. And sort of just interject with, get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website, buy a CD, possibly, of your favourite host shows. If that's on offer, an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents, or even a seed pack you can put in your freezer and just last until the S hits the F, if you know what I'm saying. Follow the instructions carefully because you don't know what your customs is going to be like in your country. We can't import active seeds or viable seeds because they're at risk. There is about give or take a million, but a million ways of donating to the station. This is listener funded. So what you need to do for yourself is go to the station's website, donate any way you can. You can buy the merch, like I've said, or you can donate, with a check. You can send a money order. You can be a Patreon. It's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. So if you've enjoyed anything that we've spoken about, then please donate. And Mackie and I also have a way of donating, but you have to go to the website, shinysideout.net. So do that. Find us, and away we go there. Now, the show number is 525.
Boom! I knew it. Something like that. Something like that.
520 and 500, Mickey?
520 and 500. That's what it is.
That's right. It's a palindrome number. So, but anyway, having said that, I did get through the show notes last show, but we're going to be talking about Ancient Aliens. This is part 8. This is probably our discussive. That's a new word. That was perfectly cromulent. Right? Sure, it's a word.
We are very discussive in our opinions.
We are. I just the same, Mackie. I have to say, I science. This is the Dave that's had a giant not Red Bull, V drink. I've driven for 7 hours from the middle of New South Wales. So I didn't get to make it all the way back for the beginning of the show, but here I am, and it's all good.
There he is. That's a song, right? Here I am.
Yeah, I got my rock fingers
ready like a hurricane. What is it called? Can't remember the words. Something like that.
Yeah,
I like that song. Here I am.
Look, Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens.
That's what we're doing.
It is. Yeah, that's what we're doing. It's a fascinating topic.
Yes.
Now, looking at all of the things that we find on this planet that don't align to the human evolutionary timeline, we kind of get a little perplexed. Well, Mackie and I aren't as perplexed. Science is perplexed and just puts in the too hard basket. Hey, that thing we just found, that doesn't match the narrative. So we're just going to put it over there. Don't have to worry about it anymore. Our narrative is here. And look how beautiful it is.
Hurrah!
It's kind of like the flat earth.
Hurrah!
All the science that they want to ignore prevents it from being real. So what they ignore discounts it. And there was a fellow I spoke to last night, and he goes, "Oh, you mind, body, spirit, you may as well go to a flat earth meeting, right?" And I go, "There's only one thing you have to do, is you got to tell them that in our sky you can see two opposite rotating centers upon which the stars rotate in the night sky. If it were a flat earth, there'd only be one. That's it. There's no other way of disproving it."
It's a hologram. Fooling you, Dave. It's a hologram.
I'm a crisis actor, and Australia doesn't exist. How's that?
No. See, the problem is this.
I've got my hand out for my payments. Who's paying us?
Look. I don't want to start a whole thing here, but look, Dave is right. If you if you work within the parameters of what we understand to be scientific knowledge, actual scientific knowledge, not speculation, not theories, but actual knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It's a small body of knowledge that we have, but it's there it is, right? Then you can easily disprove any thoughts around flat earthers and such. It can be easily done. But by the same token, if you take a different approach, right, you say, well, this is all nonsense. Everything is nonsense, and we're all collectively asleep, and everything is a hallucination or some kind of hoax or some kind of tomfoolery. And look, I maintain anyway that this entire universe is nothing but tomfoolery, projection on the cave, as you all know. But
that's a cross promotion from this other show called Plato's Cave. You'll catch it twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday mornings.
But the point is that within this reality construct that we all inhabit, and it's real enough. Okay, we're here. We are here. Make no mistake about that. And while we are here, it's real enough. It's like
a sim in a sim world. They are there.
Yeah, but it's like the Matrix too, right? The movies.
Okay, not Resurrections, whatever that new one is.
No, forget that. Don't watch it.
That's the Jar Jar Binks of the Matrix.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't at all advance the storyline. It does nothing for the story. Except you wonder what happened to Neo 30 years after. Well, you watch it, you figure out.
You get the potato masher, right? And you get the movies, and you just mash them up and smear that on some celluloid. That's what they've made.
That's what you get. No, but
a bit harsh.
In the Matrix movies, if you die in the Matrix, you actually die. So your body in the real world
die in real world. Because your brain can't distinguish the
difference. Correct. So here, I mean, look, we live our lives here in what I believe is non-reality from a real, actual point of view of our multi-dimensional existence. But it's real enough. And while we might not truly die, because I don't believe we can actually die, our essence that is, it will damage us. And I believe we're being damaged by our experiences here.
Oh yeah.
And that's really the danger.
Cats get 9 lives. We get 1 on the machine.
Yeah, I know.
That's not fair.
And I just want to say something very, very quickly to that point. Then we'll jump right into the ancient aliens. I watched this documentary show. It's called, was it Paranormal Caught on Camera or some such? It's something like that, right?
Yes.
So essentially what happens is people send their videos in, or these videos get found on YouTube, whatever, and then the makers of the show contact the people that made it and give a bit of an intro, what happened, etc. So you actually see the people that took the video, or you get the context, because sometimes it might be a traffic camera or whatever it might be, right? But this particular one, this video was taken by a man in his house of his boy dancing. I mean, look, I'm sure, and he was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, something like that. And look, we've all done similar things. Our kids are doing something funny, like my kids love doing cartwheels. So I use my phone to record a few seconds here and there of whatever activity, because I think it's just a nice snapshot to have one day maybe, or even just to share it with others through the various media we have. But this boy was dancing. It looked like it was night time because you could see the window outside was dark.
Okay.
And then the boy was dancing, and then the boy turned around, and he was looking at the corner of the room, and clearly as though he had seen something, right? And in fact, in the video, there was another little child with black eyes. The video actually, the video did record the other little child, which is before that. But as the boy turned around, it was clear in his body language and the way and how long he actually spent looking at the other child.
That he reacted to that being there.
Correct, but it didn't bother him. And because he acknowledged it in a way, and then he turned around again to dance. But you could see by the body language and the time he spent looking at this entity that he saw it. Now the man who took the video did not, and there was no other child. There was only the one child. He said, right? But this child that was taped, the second child or the second apparition or whatever you want to call it, had black eyes though, which was the one interesting feature.
That's kind of common.
It is like our children are very common, but the point is that the boy, the child, the actual child, wasn't distressed in the least, right? It was just it's almost like, oh, there you are, or okay, there's another one, or whatever it might be. No fear, nothing at all. But the guy clearly didn't see that child, and the point I'm trying to make is this: when our cats, dogs, pets, children, young children stare at something or wave at something, which my boy constantly does,
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there isn't something there, right? Just means you can't see it. We have the filters on. We can no longer see it. We don't expect it, so we don't see it.
Yeah.
It is a trick of the mind in some instances, and maybe our brains are too calcified. Certainly, Dave says.
Toothy. Just call me
Sorry.
Toothy.
Couldn't resist. Yeah, come on, tooth brain. Hey, tooth brain.
Hey, tooth brain.
And not teeth brain, but tooth brain.
Yeah.
But
I got tooth lungs
so-
and tooth adrenal
Yeah, so-
glands as well.
so, and I think
They're
we have that
spares,
same-
Mickey. Don't you grow
Spare.
spares in your own body?
dude, don't you know it? But it is sort of a blind spot that we all have. It's
Mhm.
a common blind spot after a certain age, and it's the same blind spot, to bring it back to what we're talking about today,
Yeah.
that we have for our collective past. We have a blind spot. Number one, we never taught about this, Dave, in school, right? I mean, you talk about ancient aliens in school, chances are you will not pass the course. It's not going to happen for you.
You're not going to pass modern history by doing it. I'll tell you that much.
No, even though, and I'm right now, I've got the Enuma Elish as well as the Atrahasis epic both open, because I want to, if you get a chance, quote to it from it to you. But if you were to read those the most ancient texts, in fact, the Enuma Elish is the oldest Genesis text that we have. By Genesis, I mean creation myth, right? Like the Jews and the Christians, therefore, built on it or took from it into the Old Testament. And it's if you read it with your current technological and scientific understanding,
Yes.
right, you go, oh, wow. But don't read it from a point of view, this was 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, whatever. How I mean, that's when it was written down, right? So it's much older than that. But look at it from today's point of view, or even from a point of view into the future. From a point of view that, I mean, we have now come to a point where we no longer need men or women to procreate. Do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
And this is really a theme that comes up in ancient alien or ancient astronauts. If you don't like the alien moniker, a theory all the time, the interference in our evolutionary development, the interference in, or even not just interference, but extreme course correction, maybe even in our physical and mental development. And this is really one of the major themes here. I mean, also the question, Dave, around why did if there were, okay, let's argue for a second here that there were in fact ancient aliens.
Mm-hmm.
For argument's sake, why would they interfere with us? I mean, what's the point? Now, if you read the Atrahasis epic, and this is around the Sumerians now, it's clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
Why? They had come to Earth, clearly, like these people, or they were from Earth, and somehow needed to do some massive work or whatever. But the point is, let's say they're aliens, right? So they came to Earth and undertook major terraforming activities.
Well, Anunnaki says those from above came, or something. Those from space.
Yeah,
came.
exactly. Yeah, from on high. Now, does that mean they came from the moon? Does that mean they came from another body in
somewhere
in
else?
this?
They're not Terrans. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, so we shouldn't really call it terraforming, but Anunnaki forming, whatever. So what they said is they dug out channels, canals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tigris and Euphrates rivers they dug out. That's what it says in the Atrahasis epic, and they did this for thousands of years, and it was hard work, and they didn't like it. So the Igigi said, "Hey, this is nonsense. We you're doing whatever you're doing, you Anunnaki, and we here the Igigi, which think of them, I guess, as their poor cousins. We're doing all the work."
Well, it's like they were the servants of the Anunnaki while they're in space. To me, that's what it seems like. And yet, when they've arrived here, they've just been still serving them, going, but this is too much toil. It's way more toil than we're used to.
Yeah.
It took them 1,000 years to complain so loudly.
Yeah. Now, I've as Dave, obviously, I've thought about this long and hard as well. Now,
mm-hmm.
in our society, people are just born, right? And their genetic makeup is a complete random event for most. Like, I mean, you parents get together, and however their genes combine, that's how you pop out. Some of us are strong, tall, short, fast, slow, intelligent, a little dimmer. But it's a random event. I wonder.
Telephone hygienists.
Yeah. Into the sun with you.
You know what I was saying.
We'll shoot you into the sun. The second ship never made it.
The B ship, but the A ship never left. Yeah,
that's right. But what if and we're now actually getting to the point with CRISPR in a way. I mean, we're still primitive in space, but we're getting to a point. In another few years, few decades, we will have mastered it, I should think, and really become very accomplished at gene editing and splicing and so forth.
Let's hope, or it's the end of us all. But that's not.
Well, it's the end. It's either or, right? It's that of the garbage bin. But the Anunnaki, right? Let's say they were spacefaring. And again, I'm not going to argue here the point whether or not they were actual aliens or something else. But let's say they're spacefaring and they're technologically advanced, and clearly it seems genetically as well, because they can create us. Well, that's at least what it said in the text. They created us by mixing their genetic material with local genetic material.
That's right.
And then they would be in the birth goddesses, which are really, in my opinion, just artificial wombs, and they would gestate therefore outside the body. And they were built in a certain way. These humans that they created, the black-headed ones, not the black-skinned ones, the black-headed. When we say black-headed, we usually refer to hair, but that's neither here nor there. So is it possible then that the Anunnaki were not a coherent peoples, but the Anunnaki described the at least the two strata we know about the Anunnaki and the Igigi. They're not so much people, maybe more roles or striations within their societal structure. So the Anunnaki would be therefore the scientific and ruling classes in a way, as well as probably warrior class. Whereas the Igigi would be more maybe the merchants and the laborer class, the craftsmen, the engineers, etc. And maybe there are many more striations there, but in this text, Yahtohasis, we only ever learn about the Anunnaki and the Igigi.
That's right.
And therefore, they maybe genetically engineer themselves, because the great Anunnaki made the Igigi carry the workload sevenfold. Now, the great Anunnaki didn't make the Igigi. That's always misread. The Anunnaki did not make the Igigi. The Anunnaki made the Igigi carry the workload sevenfold. Anu, their father, was king. Now, was Anu the father of the Igigi or the Anunnaki? That's a little unclear.
What the Anunnaki did make them do was toil.
Toil, and sevenfold so
that's
harder
right.
than the Anunnaki themselves. And the gods' load was too great. When the gods instead of men, that's how it starts. When the gods instead of men did the work, bore the loads, the gods' load was too great, the work too hard, the trouble too much. So the Igigi were in fact the gods, right?
That's right.
So we're not talking about two distinct groups here, right? One gods and one workers. We're talking about they're all gods, but they're societal striations, I think, is what we're talking about.
So there's one more translation of it that I have on the screen right now, and it says, when the gods manlike bore the labor, carried the load, the gods' load was great, the toil grievous, the trouble excessive, the great Anunnaki, the seven were making the Igigi undertake the toil. Exactly the same thing, just it's worded just slightly differently. In this translation.
This is the so the thing is this, when with translations, and this is really the point, I guess, as well, you never get it exactly right.
No, that's right.
Right? And we that's why it's called a translation. Right? We're trying to get the meaning across. I mean, you can see this for the living languages today. I mean, I read books in German, I read books in English, I muddle my way through French a little bit sometimes, and Italian and Latin. But there are certain things that are unique to a language, right? There are certain things, a term, you can translate, you can make the term meaningful in another language, but you don't get the feeling of it, the ethos. You just don't get it, right? Because you don't have that cultural background, you don't understand how the words hang together, and you didn't grow up using that turn of phrase or that word. with a certain emphasis. You still understand the meaning, but you don't understand the deeper layers of the meaning.
Well, you know,
Right.
like my example to everybody is Born in a Dead Man's Town.
Yeah, that
When you
was
try
actually really
to,
interesting.
yeah, when you try to translate it, it doesn't seem to translate well because there's meaning behind the phrase, not specifically the words, and that
Yes.
can be hideously inaccurate
Oh,
if you try to
100%.
translate the words only without knowing the context.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And this is amongst two living languages which are closely related.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
So that's really the kicker here. Now, if you got dead languages like Sumerian, like to some extent Latin, I guess it's not really living language anymore.
It is in botany, that's and science.
That's yeah.
That's the only thing keeping
but-
it alive.
but ultimately, you can see how language is a great divider, not a great uniter. I mean, it's a great uniter if we all speak the same language. It's an amazing divider, and we're going to spend some time on language as well. When you don't speak the same language,
Yeah.
the best way to separate human beings is by having them speak different languages.
And that was part of the post-flood story.
Bingo.
We
Bingo.
were
That was-
all
that was-
separated, given different languages, so we couldn't communicate.
Yeah. Because again, we speculated about this before, but clearly, again, happy to argue the point, but clearly we, and this is the collective we here,
Mm-hmm.
did something, and the Tower of Babel here, I think, in my opinion, is an artifact of memory. We did something together. Humanity together did something which was a monumental achievement, which was a thorn in the side of someone. They didn't like it, and they managed somehow to destroy our achievement. 1, 2. They then went ahead and separated us. Now, I believe, this is going to sound crazy, right? But I believe it was a virus that was delivered to us, which altered our brain chemistry. Because I believe very strongly that the original language that we all communicated in, both before and after the flood,
Mm-hmm.
was telepathy.
Yes.
Not thinking words at each other. That's not what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Telepathy is the transmission of concepts, ideas, feelings,
That's right.
the entire spectrum of imagine being able to truly communicate, right? And we don't have to use words to explain ourselves. You just transmit a concept or an idea, and the person receives it as though it were their idea, or they would immediately understand it because they don't have to, they don't have to go through this whole learning thing. I don't have to learn it. You can transmit understanding, over to the people. So true communication would be possible. So I think, we were able to telepath. That was the original language that we all had, I think, because babies, and I formed this theory first when I had children, and I observed them very deeply, right? And they would look at you, and they would start screaming and crying, not because they had a poop or whatever. I mean, that was of course a thing. To me it seemed like a cry of frustration. Why don't you understand me? Why can't you understand what I'm saying to you?
That's right.
Clearly, I just pooped my my diaper. Now that's not why I'm crying. I mean, it's uncomfortable, yes, but what I'm really upset with here is that you don't understand me. So I think that children, and there's some cases where mothers specifically, and in fact, I'll tell you a case of my own in a second, have this telepathic link to their.
That's right. Absolutely, 100%.
And even twins, but
they can.
identical.
Yes,
identical
that's
twins,
right. They share thoughts.
So the child, and because there isn't, because then something, maybe it's puberty, maybe it's earlier in life when you're young. There's some chemical changes which sort of shut down that telepathic ability, and maybe it has to do with the onset of the calcification of the pineal gland. I don't know. No, but I don't know, right? But the point is,
just before you do, we taught our kids sign language before they could speak. And
well done.
That cut out entirely all of that frustration. And they
see
straight away, because they could communicate even the simplest things using their hands. As soon as the child waves to someone to copy goodbye, that's when you can teach them sign language, because they've understood that I do that, everyone's doing it, I get it back, so it's reciprocated. As soon as you do that, you go, okay, this is milk, and you go and you do the sign for milk, and then when they do the sign for milk, you give them milk, and they go and they see them delight in it. You know, and you can say please, light, like the light. You teach them all these apple, cookie, all of these things, please and thank yous, even water or drink, and each one of those is all their needs covered. Don't have to worry about another thing.
That's really that. Thank you. This is just another proof point for what I was mentioning, which is brilliant. Thank you, Dave, for sharing that. So we have, I think we have this capacity early on in life. Like some of us remember our past lives early on in life, and then it just sort of goes away. And I think that's when the effects of, and look, I say virus because I don't know what else they could have done, but I'm going to say it's a virus, right? Could be something else. But something kicks in chemically or otherwise, it could be enzymes, who knows? But it kicks in and it takes away, not all of us, most of us, it takes away the ability to telepathically communicate effectively. It takes away for most of us. Some, and that's why we have these psychics, people that we call, they have the ability to be, and in fact, that there might be a whole range of senses that we shut down with this. And this is just coming to me now. All of what we call ESP, right? Extrasensory perception,
that's right,
may have been shut down with that change that was made after the Tower of Babel. And again, Tower of Babel I'm using here only as a symbol, right, for the activity. And the shamans are the same, So I tell you my story very, very quickly. When I was 5 or 6 years old, and I was playing with my friends. Back in those days, you just outside with your friends. And I was, like I said, out all day, when it got dark, you had to come home. But there was a group of us, 4, 5, 6 kids, whatever, and we just played outside. And then our parents would just let us be, right? And I jumped over a little wall. I mean, for a 5-year-old, it was a very tall wall. And I jumped out, I attempted to jump over it, but my foot got caught. And as my foot got caught, I fell and I landed on my right arm in such an unfortunate way that I actually broke it. My right arm, that is, right? And my father he got this uncomfortable feeling, and he came looking for me.
Nice.
He never does, or he never really did, right?
Yeah.
But he did at that time, and then he found me and took me home and went to the hospital, etc. Blah blah. But there are these instances where this connection exists. There's no physical connection. There's no reason for my father to come and look for me at that point specifically. None, zero, right? Because we were out all day playing anyway. And sometimes, I'm sure you get this as well. You get like an uncomfortable feeling, or something is up, and you just go and check.
Just locating my child in a food court, which is like maybe 8 different food vendors. Maybe 50 seats, it's filled with people, and all I have to do is think about where she is, and she'll look at me from the crowd of people, and that's all it takes. And we all have the skill. If you've all been in trouble looking at somebody from a vantage point that wouldn't be natural for them to look at, and then you just lock eyes, that's exhibiting this skill. We all have it. Just how do we use it? There was no instruction book. I don't remember, at the back of the Bible, Annex 1, right? Telepathy. Here's how to use it. It doesn't say that. That would have been torn out. Can't let the people do that. So it completely exists. If I give people those examples, they always come to me and say, absolutely, that happened to me. I was on the train or I was on the bus just walking past, or I'm looking down from an office window 8 stories up, and I look down at someone and they look straight at me, no one else.
Picking up the telephone. That happened to me a number of times.
Yes.
Right, so you pick up the phone.
To ring someone.
The other person, to ring someone. But a specific person, right? And the person is on the phone already, and they said, "I just finished dialing to you."
And you picked it up to dial.
Yeah,
that's right.
But before it could ring.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is and I call my mom quite a bit, right? So we talk quite frequently. She goes, "Oh, I was just thinking about you," she says, right? And it's not just a throwaway phrase
No.
for her, because she's also got certain abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about you, or whatever it may be. But this thing where I either I dialed,
Yes.
or someone clearly had dialed, I picked up the phone to
That's
dial
right. Yeah.
without a ring. This has happened so many times that it almost became a thing, right? And again, how do you explain that? Well, as a random event, the odds of that happening are astronomically small.
I know.
And so there is some, see, and the problem with most of this is you can't really scientifically test it. Not really, because we don't really know what we're testing for, to be honest, right? What are the things that we're testing for here? I mean, how do you repeat that experiment where someone randomly picks up the phone and dials a number and that person picks up the phone at the same time? You can't test for that.
There is a mental state that you've got to be in,
Yes.
a relaxed state of thinking a certain kind of way,
Yes.
and including that person into that thought process.
Yes.
You're extending yourself out to them. And that person
Exactly.
gets the signal of phoning. And so,
Yeah.
but you're right. How do you test it scientifically? Very
Yeah.
difficult. Because people don't know how they're doing it.
Nah.
You know, I was just thinking about you and I thought I'd give you a call.
Yeah.
That's as simple as that. But in a
Yeah.
calm,
Oh, okay.
safe environment, they're at home, because it was the olden days, right? When your
Yeah.
phone was in the corner of the room in a public space, right? So yeah, just look. There was one registered psychic on the U.S. military registry, and we all know that guy as the Spoonbender, Uri Geller.
Yeah.
He was the most tested, and he had 100% hit rate, and that's even on remote viewing. And just given a couple of clues and having to find what that meant. That's just
Now,
fantastic.
imagine a society
Yes.
of people like that,
Yes.
where everybody has the full spectrum of these abilities. There's nothing,
Mhm.
but it's not a special thing. It's just it's just who you are. It's just how you do things.
It's like a land
You know
full
what I
of Superman, like from Superman.
Yeah, but
right?
but
they're all the
except
same. So
everybody's
there's nothing super about it.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, so this, and maybe, just maybe, that's the state of being we entered into when we went into this matrix, for whatever reason. But that's how we got here, and that may have been closest to the state of existence that we knew before we got here, the most natural for us. Right? And then over time, and this is what I mean by damage, right? And over time, these abilities eroded. Maybe someone actively interfered with us to take them away, right? Maybe they were damaged over time, and maybe they became less and less. I don't know, right? But clearly, over time, and time is really critical here, we lost a whole bunch of abilities and ways to exist and interact with our environment, and that now today we only remember as myth and legend and fairy tales. Right?
Okay, so we have the Nephilim in the stories from the ancient alien times. We have tales in the Anunnaki, the stories from the Sumerians about the Anunnaki, saying that we'd angered them in some way, and they destroyed us all by water, and then they recreated us again. But rather than being immortal, they gave us a time limit or an age maximum of 120 years. What's peculiar is, at the time when all the hominids were around, none of them had 46 chromosomes. They had 48. So two of them were fused together
So
to make this version of humans from what was about. It seems completely consistent with the story of the Sumerian tale about the creation of humans, and from the existing hominids that were around. That was part of that DNA. part of what existed here. They took some of theirs and some of what was here, and they made us. So
in their image.
In their
but
image,
not
because they were
completely so.
human-like anyway.
And you know what it says in the Bible, right? We were expelled, and this is the Bible
That's
story,
right.
then, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were expelled from the Garden of Eden, not because we had eaten from the tree of knowledge.
Uh-huh.
So people always spin that story out, snake, the devil, he made us eat from the tree of knowledge, and that's why we got, kicked out. Not
Mm-hmm.
true. Read it again. We were kicked out so we would not eat from the tree of life and become like them.
That's right.
Right?
And the tree
That's
of
why we're
life
kicked out.
really means the forever living, right?
That's it.
If that's the only difference, then and this is my greatest postulation, and I know you love this one.
Mm.
If we never lived past 35, we would never know what menopause was.
Bingo.
We would never see ourselves age. We would never know what happened past then. But now that we can live to whatever the average age is these days, in your 80s, right? My dad's 86.
Mm-hmm.
You see decline. You see, all of the natural things that we didn't think would even existed. We had no way of knowing past 35 what there was in store for us. What if we kept that 35 to 10,000 year as a replica, like the same kind of living expectation that we had between 30 and 35? If that was stretched out 10,000 years and then we declined after that, well, that'd be pretty cool. What other things could we do?
Yeah.
Imagine our decision processes if we had such a long life.
We would have a completely different outlook on life.
And an understanding of the universe in a way that we couldn't comprehend now. I keep trying to tell people that the difference between living to 120 and living for 10,000 years is like when you buy a family pet.
Mm-hmm.
Like say it was a budgie or something, right? A bird, I don't care what kind of bird, not a cockatoo that can live like 100 years. But rather, you buy a dog or a cat or something, and they can live 14 years, right? Give or take. They'll notice children grow up, but they won't really notice anything about an adult. There won't be anything they noticed about us that changed over that time, and they've lived their entire life and then pass away.
Yeah.
Mickey's example of the Mayfly, and you're living a single day.
That's it.
They see one night, one day. That's it. That's all they get.
100%. That's the extent of their entire life.
That's right.
So, and that's how we are in comparison to those that live much longer. Yeah.
So for us, we would seem like the family pet. We'd only live, not a millionth of, but like that 10,000th of their lifespan, we wouldn't notice any change in them. So the watchers, for instance, if the watchers are real and there are beings that are observing us, they could be 100,000 years old, 10,000 years old, and doesn't mean they're all old and decrepit with Zimmer frames, right? They're just the same as they were when we were born.
And that's the important thing, Dave, what you just said there. If you had immortality, you wouldn't want an immortality where you keep aging. That's completely useless. Immortality where you arrest the aging process. And the truth is this: there is no good reason. There is no good reason, I'm going to repeat this, why we age, except, of course, for the kill switch that's built into us.
That's correct.
Okay? Apart from environmental factors, such as sun exposure, but you can always, minimize that as well. But there is no good reason for us to age. Let that sink in.
Yeah, well, it is sinking in, that with the sunscreen. So, yes, completely right, Mickey. And this is what's had me... It had me stumped initially when we stumbled upon this like 10 years ago about the Anunnaki. Certainly the Nyagigi completely surprised us because it's not something you hear very often. You hear the Sumerians and the Anunnaki and that's all you really understand. Until you start digging, then you find, wow, hang on a minute. There was a race of people that complained. And Enlil goes, stop your complaining. All right, I'll build you some people that can do the toil. Yay! Right? You get back on the spaceship. Don't worry about the toil. Just imagine if you had a personal butler, a person who buttles for you,
Mhm.
and you ask them to dig trenches, you'd never hear the end of that.
I didn't go to Buttle School all my life to do this.
That's right. Right? So that's exactly the same situation. Just want to try to put some humor into it. So I wonder, Meki, what we're missing out on from an evolutionary perspective
look.
through our lives.
100%.
If we discovered menopause, what else happens?
Well, see, the thing is,
You grow
I
teeth
believe,
back?
well, probably, because the thing is this, right? I mean, you start out with no teeth, then you have a
That's
set of milk teeth, which last you about 8,
There,
9
there,
years, whatever, right?
there are your play teeth. So you're playing
Yeah.
with stuff, chewing on things. Well, that didn't work really well. Then you get a brand new set when you've learned.
And then you get a brand new set. Now, who's to say that if aging, senescence, cell death, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
didn't happen, other mechanisms weren't triggered? So there's look. Let's just quickly look at this. There's certain triggers. Okay, you're born with no teeth, and then you are growing your milk teeth. That's the first trigger.
Mhm.
Then you lose your milk teeth. Your brain develops, you grow bigger, and you get permanent teeth, or we call them permanent teeth. They last you for the rest of your life. Right? Also, we think, right? That's a trigger. Something happens in your body chemically, and it starts making that. Then the next big one is puberty, right? All of a sudden, a whole bunch. And I mean, what's the trigger for that? It's really age.
like a metamorphosis.
Yeah,
that happens.
It's 100% butterfly. You know, like from caterpillar to butterfly.
That's
And
right.
so you go into this
Wings,
child, and you come
beautiful
out.
wings.
Yeah, you come out an adult with hair growing in places and different
Yeah.
thoughts and urges and hormones and all kinds of things, and in certain parts of your body start growing, right?
Yeah.
And it's really strange, and it's for a woman the change is much more I don't want to say catastrophic,
Radical.
but more radical than for a man, because all of a sudden they start to menstruate, right?
Mhm.
And you start you start bleeding. I mean, all this stuff, and then the other triggers, and then you go on. Okay, then you're done with puberty, right? And usually some people develop acne as well and things like that, right? But then you're done with it, and then you're going through other developmental changes, and the next big one again is one for women when they go through menopause. I'm just talking about the big ones here, right?
Mhm.
And in menopause is when your reproductive system shuts down. And it can be quite traumatic for the person.
Yeah,
I've seen this
completely.
with some women, quite a traumatic experience. And then men also go through something that's called a midlife crisis again, which where men, I guess, they
Do you
sort
know
of
what
look for the
happens?
lost youth.
Yeah,
Go on.
but the lost youth, I think what happens is you've done the replication cycle.
Yeah.
And you kind of devolve back to the person pre-replication cycle.
Yeah.
That's really what happens.
Mm.
And then it's like, well, life again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Woohoo! Here we are. I can live again. I'm still young. And that's really what we're thinking. But see, but then there are more changes. So then aging sets in where your organs deteriorate. But those aren't
Mhm.
changes like puberty or menopause.
No.
Those are deterioration changes.
That's right.
So your organs start to fail. Your cell replication becomes more and more flawed, which then is expressed as aging.
Which we've now
Aging is
discovered is the lack of telomerase
Yeah.
keeping your telomeres long enough so that replication problems don't occur.
Correct. So if that didn't happen, let's say for argument's sake for a second, let's say your cell replication could be kept optimal.
Yes.
All right. There's no such thing as perfect, but it kept
Close.
optimal, right?
Mhm.
There's no reason then why aging should be a concern for you. There really isn't.
Mhm.
Right? Unless you live a really, really, really bad lifestyle. That's up to you then. That's on you, right? And certainly radiation is, I mean, it's a whole. I mean, if a brick
Yeah.
falls on your head, you'll still die, right? But ultimately,
Silver
you are
bullets, Mickey, and sharp
Silver-
stakes, I'll tell you.
well, there's a lot.
The stories,
there's a
I
lot
think the
to that.
stories are real.
Yeah, so it means there might be specific. And why did the French behead so many aristocrats in the revolution? No, but I'm serious. So what you
Cake and ice
vampire-
cream.
Yeah, and I saw that. And so you are then left with what other? So let's say, okay, senescence, the aging process of the cell or the death of the cell is now stopped, no longer happening.
Mhm.
What other developmental stages are we missing out on? So we had puberty, then menopause, and a whole bunch of others in between as well. But then we get to the point of the age of, I don't know, whatever, 80, 90, 100, whatever it is.
Sure.
And do we grow another set of teeth? Does our body start to grow? I mean, if you look at the pictures of the Anunnaki, the eldest Sumerian depictions of the Anunnaki,
they're so much taller.
Yeah, you see the Anunnaki represented as, I'm going to put it in the context of us, as adults. Right? So let's say they're the adults.
Yep.
It says all the people, the human beings, as it were, are child size.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're all child size. So
compared to us now, yes.
Yeah, correct. Now, is it therefore too far a stretch to think that maybe, just maybe, if we were allowed to live our natural lifespan without the kill switch, that is, would we also then physically grow bigger? Because there's really no reason, and in some individuals, that growth is still triggered. Some people, now not perfectly, and usually they're not terribly long-lived at times, but there are people that are quite a lot taller than the average, for example. They really are, right?
Yes.
And sometimes people do sport a third set of teeth. So there's actually medical histories for that. So you know, it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the question then becomes, if we were allowed to live our natural lifespans, whatever that might be, right, would we then go through other developmental stages? And I think the answer is firmly yes. Now,
wait. How many people who still have molars up in their jaw? Me. I didn't have mine removed. Imagine.
Oh, you mean the wisdom teeth?
Yeah, that's right. The wisdom teeth. So imagine if at a certain age they just come down.
Yeah.
Again, like.
And maybe your skull is growing, and maybe your skull elongates as part of this. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
It's so because we don't know. I mean, if you look at the changes from child, like baby born to adult, it's like, what? I mean, you look at the two entities and you go, how do you go from here to here? It's such a massive change, and like they've said, a metamorphosis, really, right?
Your nose doesn't stop growing, and neither do your ears, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's very true, my friend. And then, I mean, again, let's look to nature for a second here. Metamorphosis is not an unusual thing. Mm-hmm. Again, look at the simple and unassuming caterpillar. Right, the caterpillar, lives its life. It goes, there's an egg. It comes out. It's a caterpillar. Goes around, eats leaves and whatever. And then at a certain point, and whatever triggers it in this behavior, it builds a cocoon around itself.
Then reliquefies all of its cells and rearranges into a butterfly or a moth.
Reassembles, and after a period of time, comes out of the cocoon a butterfly which bears no resemblance whatsoever
to the caterpillar.
With the caterpillar.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not the only creature in nature that undergoes such a radical metamorphosis. I mean, frogs, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, hypnotic cycle. That's really good. Why do they call them wisdom teeth? That's really good. Good point, right? Maybe they only come into play at the ripe old age where you're meant to have wisdom.
Maybe 200 years or something. That's when they come down.
Look again, but
because maybe we're as adults, considering the difference between adults and children in our context, so maybe we just become the adolescents from childhood when we're at 100.
Yeah, but you know what I find really sad, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
This is really where you and I, we can talk like this, and people in the chat room, they're willing to listen to it and entertain the ideas because they're open-minded enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem here is this, Dave, right? We are the fringe of society. We are the fringe in many ways, and people laugh at us and belittle us and go, yeah, sure, conspiracy this and conspiracy that. But I would love to have this open and frank conversation with the scientific establishment. So look, I said these are thoughts that we've had. These are some ideas. Let's just spitball. Is it really that far-fetched? Is it really that crazy to think about it? Now, we're not talking miracles here. My question would be, and I would love to sit down with like really hard scientists that that are really good at what they do and really understand biology and all, like really understand it, right? I would love to sit down and say, hey, look, what if we could stop senescence? What if we could have telomerase active constantly, right?
Mhm.
And the whole cancer argument doesn't fly with me. And I want
No.
to talk about that as well to the scientists, right?
Yeah.
About the cancer argument for telomerase. But what if, for argument's sake, we could activate telomerase, and there would be other associated chemical processes, I'm sure.
6 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, I know that would play into it. I'd love to have the debate or the discussion, not the debate, but the discussion with the scientists to really plumb out the merits of this theory. And if you're a scientist out there, like, really open-minded, then you should be able to entertain it as well. Not as something that is threatening your position, but just as an idea. It's just an idea. And it's an idea that seems to resonate. It seems to, if you look at the ancient past and some of the stories and a whole bunch of other stuff, like myths and fairy tales, there seems to be some element of truth to it. Is it really that far-fetched to think that if we stopped our aging, as it were, and maybe other processes would kick in? Like, I mean, what kicks off puberty? What kicks off menopause? Do you know what I mean? And it's different for everybody anyway, right? But we don't all at the age of 30, we don't all of a sudden go
some
through
are
puberty.
early, some are late.
Yeah. So it's not exact anyway, right? But the point here is, what if we could have our cells, our DNA protected enough to make sure the replication process is not impacted, so aging is stopped. So if we therefore then live longer, what other triggers would we live through? Would we get
like the shrimp, Meki, for instance, the shrimp that gets younger.
Shrimp.
Yeah, it hits maturity, replicates, and then goes back in time to a prepubescent state, and then matures again, and goes through that cycle.
Yeah, I mean, so that's astounding.
That's a thing. I mean, if you could write the code, Meki, if we understood DNA to the point where we could just extend our lives indefinitely through DNA, not through chemical changes,
no,
through
100%.
DNA that causes it.
Yeah.
There's no stopping us.
No,
within the next 100 years, no doubt we'll do that, because science has postulated that we would be there by the 2020s, but it's a bit late, I think.
Well, look, I think we'll get there, but there are other things as well. I mean, if you look at nature, right, and you look at the
wait, imagine if CRISPR gene editing made the error code fail. Huh? Right? So we have a checksum in data that says that packet is of data of ones and zeros should add up to this number, and if it doesn't, it's discarded. Could you imagine if we started playing with CRISPR and we started just terminating?
Yeah, but you see what's really but what's interesting with our genetic material as well is we share most of our genetic material with most of the other creatures on this planet.
That's true.
Like to a very high percentage. I mean, with chimpanzees it's like 99%, and then it goes down to 80, 70, 60. But the point here is that some creatures, like
23% with yeast, Meki.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Some creatures can reverse the aging cycle. Other creatures can spontaneously regenerate limbs. Right? So with the
crabs.
right code activated, and maybe we have that capacity as well, if only we were given time to develop that capacity. So
kangaroos can halt their reproductive process.
There you go.
At will. And what was that bird? There was a bird that was something was on its own, and it had an egg.
It changes. Correct. So what it actually self-fertilized.
It fertilized the egg. That's right.
That's a high order animal.
Hang on a minute.
This is not some kind of single cell organism,
That's right.
like an amphibian. So this is a higher order.
We did not
animal,
even know it was a thing that they could do.
No.
Yeah.
No, but there it is. So we are looking at truly miraculous capabilities within nature, which, because we share a lot of the same DNA, must be in our code as well. And having said that, given enough time, right, to explore ourselves, and looking at some of the ancient practices like yoga, for example, where you get mastery over your body. The yogic masters, they have almost complete mastery over the body, and so much so, in fact, and maybe that's because they lived for so long that they were in fact able to levitate. In fact, the ancient Vimana are meant to have, in part at least, been powered by this ability of these yogic masters to levitate. Okay.
Yeah.
At least in part. Imagine this whole spectrum of ESP. That's just a normal thing that you have. So you build
Mhm.
machines that would make use of that.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
today, we build machines that we can use in our full capacity. So if our capacity were somehow increased, like we had telekinesis and telepathy and whatnot, right? And we would, instead of speaking at doors, we'd think at doors, which soon we will be able to do as well, by the way,
Mhm.
right? And imagine living in a society that has built it. That's maybe why we can't understand some of these things in the past. We look at it and we go, what? Don't get it. Sorry, that's the music. Man, this is good topic. I love it.
It sure is. Look, stay tuned. This is David Mackey's Shiny Side Out. This is the end of show 525. Stay tuned for Jer Bear's After Hours show. Awesome show. Become part of it. Dial yourself in and talk some money out. Be brave. We'll see you next week. Take care.